We're going to talk on two parts, no? Esophagus and stomach. For the first part, we're going to talk on structural and motility disorders of the esophagus. Okay. So we have to start with the manifestations, symptoms of the esophageal diseases, no? Because there are lots of term na minsan na i-interchange natin, and we have to settle first kung anong real meaning nitong mga terms na to in terms of our understanding. Minsan ibang term ng heartburn ng pasyente, minsan iba rin ang understanding ninyo ng heartburn. So if we have some discrepancy, malaki ang problem natin of interpreting sometimes the diseases or symptoms of the patient. So heartburn, what is heartburn? It is a discomfort behind the sternum, no? Um, to be differentiated from chest pain. Chest pain is a similar to cardiac pain. Paano ba nagde-describe ang patient na meron chest pain? So meron silang dinidescribe na something that is heavy on their sternal area, no? As to differentiate sa discomfort or heartburn, discomfort behind the sternums, minsan ang description ng pasyente is something na parang hot substance na may pumapasok or something burning sensation behind the sternum. So there is a big difference between burning sensation and yung chest pain na pressing pain, parang may nakadagan. So we have to differentiate that. While regurgitation is the effortless return of the food, yung parang may bumabalik lang na food towards the throat, no? Dysphagia is a parang sticking of food in the chest, no? Pagka lumunok sila, para silang may dinidescribe na merong nakadikit. To be differentiated sa globus sensation. Globus sensation is parang merong nakadikit or sumasabit or parang merong something in the throat. So lump or fullness in the throat. So globus sensation is in the throat while dysphagia is food sticking in the chest. So chest, two different areas. While odynophagia is pain, no? Pain during swallowing from the throat to the chest, either, no? Pwedeng sa throat, pwedeng sa chest. Usually seen in patients with esophageal ulcers, no? Parang masyadong masakit siya. Usually seen in patients na nagkakaroon sila ng yung umiinom ng mga gamot without water, yung mga pill ulcers ang tawag natin doon, no? So they develop some ulcer due to medications. So we have different diagnostic studies. We have endoscopy. Yan yung most popular. We use an endoscope inserted into the mouth through the esophagus, no? Radiography, X-ray yan. Endoscopic ultrasound. So this is special kind of ultrasound using a scope, no? Nakakabit doon yung mga probe ng scope. Manometry. This is a gadget used to measure the pressure inside the esophagus. This is important in patients complaining with dysphagia. Usually, we check for the pressure. Sometimes meron silang hypertensive lower esophageal sphincter, no? Matataas ang pressure. That's why hindi siya maka-accommodate ng food pag nagsuswallow, kaya nagkakaroon sila ng increase in pressure and pain. So usually seen in achalasia, no? And of course, reflux testing, this is a test naman to measure the pH in the different levels of the esophagus. Normally, the esophagus should not be acidic. The acid remains in the stomach, but in the event of a reflux, ang acid nagpupunta na sa esophagus, thereby magre-register yan doon sa ating pH meter, which is deployed in different areas of the esophagus. So for the basic, ano muna natin, anatomy and physiology, adult esophagus is usually 18 to 26 centimeter in length. We have two anatomic divisions, the cervical, which is from the neck upward, and the thoracic, sa chest area, with internal dimension of 2 centimeter, that is antero-postero plane, and 3 centimeter lateral plane. So it's not a perfect circle, it's an oblong. And solid food dysphagia can occur if there is narrowing of the esophagus to less than 13 millimeter. So we have different kinds of structural disorders. Uh, Hiatal hernia, this is a common disorder, but these are not serious problem, no? But this pose a structural disorder and sometimes with symptoms among patients. So hiatal hernia, there is herniation, no, of the stomach through the esophageal hiatus in the diaphragm. So in the diaphragmatic crus, no, that divides the esophagus and the stomach. But sometimes during herniation, during vomiting or nausea of the patient, no, pag dumudual, the part of the stomach, the proximal part, slides over the esophageal area, no, doon sa diaphragmatic crus. Kaya acid can be trapped and patient are prone to reflux diseases. Rings and webs, the origin is unknown. It occurs in 10 to 15% of the general population. It may present as dysphagia, but usually they are asymptomatic. Same thing with diverticula, no? We have different kinds of diverticula as to location, epiphrenic, hypopharyngeal, we call it Zenker's, and mid-esophageal. It is due to increase in intraluminal pressure of the esophagus. And most of them are also asymptomatic. Esophageal motility disorders. Usually it is caused by esophageal neuromuscular dysfunction. And the major entities, we have the achalasia, diffuse esophageal spasm, and reflux disease or gastroesophageal reflux disease. The most common here is the GERD, no? The gastroesophageal reflux disease. And to most of you have heard of this condition, no? Kasi common ano na siya ngayon, condition. So we'll start with achalasia. What is achalasia? This is a loss of ganglion cells in the esophageal mesenteric plexus. Well, this is not a common condition. It occurs in 1 is to 100,000 population and between ages of 25 to 60. There is the absence of these ganglionic cells, no? You know, uh, there should be a esophageal sphincter relaxation, but their absence leads to impaired deglutitive lower esophageal sphincter relaxation. So, and also nagkakaroon sila ng absence of peristalsis. So what happens is hindi na nagmo-move masyado yung esophagus, so nothing to propel the food downward. And because there is impaired relaxation, medyo tense yung muscles dyan, yung lower esophagus, sphincter nila. So the food is being trapped in the esophageal area. So the transit of food is impaired from the esophagus to the stomach. What is the cause? So it is thought to be autoimmune process. So in long-standing achalasia, there will be a resulting esophageal dilatation and sigmoid deformity. Later on, I can explain dahil meron naman tayong picture dito, no? And the manifestations are dysphagia, regurgitation, chest pain, and weight loss. Of course, if you have long-standing achalasia, you have problems with nutrition, eventually you will have weight loss. And in advanced achalasia, because of the food is trapped in the esophagus, they might have aspiration leading to bronchitis, pneumonia, or even lung abscess. So how do we diagnose? We use X-ray, no, using barium swallow. And of course, we can make use of esophageal manometry, measuring the different portions of the esophagus, yung pressures nila. Endoscopy, hindi masyadong ginagamit yan. It only has a minor role just to exclude pseudoachalasia. What do we mean by to exclude pseudoachalasia? Merong patients na nagkakaroon sila ng increase in distal esophagus tension, but not due to real achalasia na there is increase in the tension of the lower esophageal sphincter, such as in patients with tumors located at distal esophagus. So naiipit yung lower esophageal sphincter. So they can behave as parang achalasia, but we term that as pseudoachalasia. So the role of endoscopy is just to rule out other causes, no? If there are tumors or severe inflammation of the area of the distal esophagus. Also, we can use CT scan or endoscopic ultrasound, but the main diagnostic tool that we use is the barium swallow and esophageal manometry. So here is the picture of the barium swallow. No, as you can see, there is a here, no, dilatation of the esophagus sa laki-laki niya, and it's not a straight one. Para siyang nag-S sigmoid shape. And then do sa dulo, meron silang tapering end, ano, beak-like appearance, parang beak lang ng bird, no? So, because it represents the narrowing of the distal esophagus because of the increase in tension of the lower esophageal sphincter. So, the diagnostic criteria, the most sensitive is manometry, no? Because you can see in the pattern of the manometric studies that there is impaired relaxation of the lower esophageal sphincter. Although we do not have those instrument in most hospitals, no? Only some hospitals has this instrument dahil hindi naman masyadong ginagamit to, kaya only few hospitals has this or laboratory has this gadget. This is the most sensitive test. So there is no known way of preventing achalasia. So the therapy is directed at reducing the pressure of the LES so that the gravity and esophageal pressurization promote esophageal emptying. So we can use pharmacologic agent to reduce this pressure. We can also use forceful dilatation or surgery. So what are the pharmacologic agents? By the way, they are just temporary therapies, no? You will relax the stone of the lower esophageal sphincter using calcium channel blockers and nitrates. These are antihypertensive and cardiac drugs. That's why sometimes ang side effect nito can lower the blood pressure because it relaxes the smooth muscles of the blood vessel. Also, it affects the lower esophageal sphincter tone. We can also use botulinum toxin via endoscopy. We will put the toxin injection through the scope, and we have the injector. We can inject the lower part, and the muscular portion of the sphincter will relax, no? But this is also temporary. Usually, it will last mga 4 to 6 months. Then afterwards, babalik uli sila. Also, we can use sildenafil. So these are pharmacologic agents. One of the durable therapies for achalasia are pneumatic dilatation and surgery. We call it the Heller myotomy. What is pneumatic dilatation? That is a rubber tube that is inserted at the area of the lower esophagus. Yung rubber tube na yon, meron siyang balloon. So you will inflate the balloon So matibay yung balloon na yun, ano, it will inflate at high pressure to open up the impaired lower esophageal sphincter until you disrupt some of the circular muscles, no? So luluwag siya. So pag lumuwag siya, sometimes pag maganda, it will take time bago uli sila magkaroon ng recurrence. But also, there are times na nagre-recur sila. That's why you have to repeat it once in a while. And Heller myotomy is the definitive choice of surgery. We refer the patient to surgeon, and they will excise, no, some of the portions of the circular muscle para hindi na sila uh, continuously contracting. Okay, any question? Any question? So, so I can proceed with the next. Uh, Wait, I'm going to prepare the second slide. So can you see now my slide?
Yes po, Doc.
Malinaw ba yung ano ko? Audio? Can you hear me well?
Yes po, Doc.
Oh, kasi medyo maingay dito, no? We have a bad weather. Um, our next topic will be gastroesophageal reflux, no? Since this is one of the common problem in the uh, GI or gastrointestinal diseases, so this topic deserve a separate discussion. So gastroesophageal reflux disease, it has a wide spectrum of injury, starting from the milder one, the esophagitis, which the patient can have some form of heartburn, no, odynophagia, no, to stricture and Barrett's esophagus. Stricture is a narrowing of the esophagus secondary to repeated episode of injury. So nagkakaroon na sila ng scarring and then stricture, no? So ang manifestation, meron na silang dysphagia, no? Barrett's esophagus, this is a transformation of the esophageal cells into a metaplastic cells, no? So these are abnormal transformation, and because this Barrett's esophagus, there are metaplastic change, they can result into a complication uh, and degenerate into malignancy, which is esophageal adenocarcinoma. So yan yung kanyang mga spectrum of injury. So esophagitis, usually due to reflux of the acid, no, gastric acid and pepsin, that will lead to esophageal erosions, necrosis, and sometimes ulcers, no. So esophagitis is coming from excessive reflux. So madalas pumupunta yung intestinal content to the esophagus, and at the same time, you have impaired clearance. So impaired clearance of the esophagus or the stomach, because usually after some time, ang content ng stomach natin should be already in the small intestine. But somehow in patients with impaired clearance of the stomach, it stays there for longer periods of time. Thereby, it also give a higher chance of of the content to reflux into the esophagus. So what is the mechanism of this incompetence? We can have different mechanism. Transient lower esophageal sphincter relaxation. This is a vagovagal reflex elicited by gastric distension. In normal individual, even among you, among us, no, we can have transient LES relaxation. So we can experience, even in normal individuals, reflux, no? But most of the time, these reflux are not so very serious problem among us. Medyo para lang meron ka malalasang parang maasim, no, aftertaste. Pero usually hindi masyado nating nagiging symptomatic to most individuals. So lower esophageal sphincter hypotension. So the tension of the sphincter is less. That's why opposite ng achalasia, no, achalasia is high, mahigpit. Ito naman is maluwag. That's why the acid can move to and fro from the stomach to the esophagus. Or the patient can have anatomic distortion, no? So yun yung mga hiatal hernia can also produce or make the patient prone to develop reflux. So what are the factors that exacerbate? So abdominal obesity, pregnancy. So this too is related to increase in intra-abdominal pressure, no? So because during pregnancy, the uterus is becoming large, so it exerts pressure to the stomach, thereby promoting more reflux, the pregnancy. So same thing with abdominal obesity. Gastric hypersecretory states. So there are some people that has a more acid secretion, no? Therefore, more gastric acid, the more chance of reflux. Yan, yung binanggit natin kanina, delayed gastric emptying, disruption of esophageal peristalsis, and of course, excessive eating, no? Gluttony. Pagka masyado kang malakas kumain, then palaging busog ka at mataas ang pressure ng tiyan mo, so you will have a exacerbation of your reflux. So these are the harmful elements to the esophagus. So the gastric juice, pepsin, bile, and pancreatic enzymes. Those are secreted by the different organs. They are in the stomach, and then sometimes when they go to the esophagus, they will go produce these symptoms, no? So the most common is heartburn and regurgitation among the symptoms. And the less common is dysphagia and chest pain. So we have extra esophageal manifestation, yung binanggit natin kanina, pag severe na, no? Nagkakaroon na sila ng chronic cough, laryngitis. Sometimes it goes to the vocal cords, kaya magkakaroon na sila ng irritation and coughing. And some patients, nagkakaroon sila ng repeated episodes of asthma because it can trigger asthmatic attacks, and dental erosions because of the acidity of those yung mga pepsin and bile acids, no? It can erode our teeth also. So the complications are bleeding, so repeated reflux because these are injurious acid, ano, to the esophagus. They can cause ulcers and bleeding. And then once mag-heal, sometimes they produce scar and then stricture. And then of course, once you develop Barrett's esophagus, it is prone to for the complication to develop into esophageal cancer or adenocarcinoma. So this is now the Barrett's esophagus, no? So Barrett's metaplasia can progress to adenocarcinoma. So As you can see, the arrows here in the picture, yung parang mapulang portion, no? We call it intestinalization. So normally, the esophagus should have this whiter portion ano, na mucosa, but somehow nagkakaroon ng adaptation, abnormal adaptation of this esophagus, transforming them into a metaplastic and then eventually high-grade dysplasia. And the rate of cancer development is about 2.3% per year. So, hindi naman masyadong mataas. Ibig sabihin, once you have reflux and nakitang may Barrett's esophagus ka, so hindi naman eventually sabihin poor prognosis or cancer, no? We can just monitor the patient. Because the management here of the Barrett's is controversial. Depending on the country you are, ano, no? Kasi some other countries, pag nakita nila yan, ang gusto nila alisin na kagad esophagectomy, which is a very radical procedure, no? But for us here in Asia, we just do endoscopic surveillance, no? To some, pagka severe na mucosal ablation, ano lang yan, local procedure lang yan, done locally at the area of the metaplastic area of the esophagus, no? Endoscopic procedure lang yan. So you can see the mortality for esophagectomy is up to 10%. So medyo malaki kaya we don't do esophagectomy. So how do we treat lifestyle modification? So avoidance of food that lowers the esophageal sphincter pressure. And these are, ayan, mga fatty foods, alcohol, mga minty foods, no? Peppermint, spearmint, tomato-based food, coffee, and tea. So if you are experiencing severe reflux, these are the food that you have to avoid. Of course, acidic foods and behavioral modification. Meaning, kung ikaw ay talagang malakas kumain, masyadong magana ang appetite mo, you have to practice possibly small frequent feedings, no, to minimize the reflux and the heartburn symptom. So, pharmacologic agent, we have the PPIs, no? Yung mga omeprazole natin, pantoprazole, esomeprazole, no? H2 blockers and alginates. Alginates, ito yung mga Gaviscon, Algina, yung mga ano natin, common medications. And for surgery, we have the Nissen fundoplication, wherein part of the stomach is sutured around the esophagus. Ayan, dito sa picture, no? Parang nakaakap yung stomach sa esophagus. This will create an increase in pressure of the lower esophageal sphincter. Remember, ang problem natin dito is impaired yung kanyang relaxation. Most of the time, nakarelax siya, kaya walang pressure na nagko-close sa lower esophagus. That's why you create a pressure by tying the stomach around the esophagus. Any question? If none, we'll proceed with our next. So, tumors of the esophagus. For the esophageal part of our lecture, this is the last slide, and we will proceed with the stomach after this. So, the tumors of the esophagus, they are common, and of course, they are lethal malignancies, no? Because they are usually invasive and carries a bad prognosis. And two major histologic types, we have the squamous and the squamous cell carcinoma and adenocarcinoma. Squamous cell carcinoma, more common cell type, no? It has a familial tendency. It is common in blacks than in whites and more in male than female, and seen usually after the age of 50. It arises in the cervical and thoracic portion. So if you divide the esophagus, we have the upper, middle, and lower. So this occurs into middle and the upper part, no? Sa cervical and thoracic portions of the esophagus. And they are associated with lower socioeconomic status. So these are associated with alcohol consumption, no? Kung malakas kang uminom, alcohol can also alter the cellular immune or responses of the esophagus to the alcohol. Smoking, ingested carcinogens such as nitrates, smoke opiates, fungal toxins, no? Uh, Mucosal damage from physical agents. So usually nakikita to before mataas ang incidence among Chinese, no, because they are fond of ingesting very hot tea. So even the tea, it's not the tea but it's the hot tea, no, yung mainit masyado, they can burn, no, repeatedly, nagkakaroon ng metaplastic changes also of the esophagus. And then of course yung lye. Syempre hindi naman natin ininom yung lye, pero yung lye is some agents used by other people, especially if they want to end their life, no? Yung mga suicidal. So, they ingest lye, no? So, they are strong chemical agents, no? Used for cleaning, industrial cleaning, no? Industrial agents yan. So, meron sa atin yan and we have several patients who attempted. So, this is not good because sometimes you survive the initial, but the complication, they can develop stricture and eventually cancer of the esophagus. So we have the host susceptibility. So merong other people na susceptible talaga, probably genetics, no, to develop this kind of cancer. Esophageal webs, no, Plummer-Vinson, Patterson-Kelly syndrome. So they're not common naman dito sa atin. Congenital hyperkeratosis, and then also vitamin and mineral deficiencies. So very important also that we also take our vitamins and also eat a different varieties of food so that we can have a good balance of these vitamins. For adenocarcinoma, no, to be differentiated to squamous cell, no, it has now been increasing, no? Bakit? Almost more than 75% of all esophageal cancers, no? And this one is located usually at the distal esophagus. Yung isa nasa upper and middle part. And 15% of this expresses HER2 neogene, no? So, what are the etiologic factors? Kaya tumataas siya because dumadami na ang ating obese. And obesity is one of the factor for gastroesophageal reflux. So this is the reason kaya dumadami na siya. So when you have reflux, if unchecked for several years, you can develop Barrett's esophagus and thereby adenocarcinoma. And it is common among male. Of course, again, cigarette smoking is included. So for esophageal cancer, the distribution, titingnan natin upper, middle, and lower third. The more common is the lower third, no? 75% because nga mas marami na tayo ng mga adenocarcinoma. They can present as progressive dysphagia, no? And dysphagia will occur when 60% of the lumen is already involved. So you will ask the patient kung masakit ba or nahirapan ba silang lumunok. Usually, pag during the early course of the disease, hindi pa masyadong involved yung the whole lumen, so wala pa silang dysphagia. Pagka lumalaki na sila, they will complain of dysphagia. But you have to ask whether to liquids or solid because initially, pagka meron silang dysphagia, it will manifest only to solid foods. Pero when they drink water, wala. pag experience na sila ng dysphagia even to liquids, that means no, it is already obstructing much of the portion of the lumen of the esophagus. Kaya even yung water na freely flowing fluid, nahirapan na sila. And the patient will also have weight loss. So the clinical features, that's why we identify the different manifestations, ano? So alam nyo na yung odynophagia, regurgitation, vomiting. Tracheoesophageal fistulas, there is connection between the esophagus and the trachea. Usually if the tumor is located at the same level of the trachea, they invade and then creating a tunnel. So we call it the tracheoesophageal fistula. And hypercalcemia. So there are areas to metastasize. We have the lymph nodes, the supraclavicular, the lungs, the liver, the pleura, and the bone. To diagnose, we have to again use the barium swallow just like in achalasia kasi mga nakikita natin there are feeling defects, no? So endoscopy, we can use that because it has a direct visualization of the tumor. Chest CT scan, we can see the inside and outside of the esophagus to see the relationship of the tumor outside of that area involved. Endoscopic ultrasound and also PET scan or positron emission tomography. So these are the different modalities. So the first one here, this is the X-ray, no? The barium swallow. This is the normal esophagus, and the narrowed portion here is the uh, mass, no? You can see it narrows the lumen. Yung barium column na yun lumiit because of the tumor growing on the part of the esophagus. While this one is, the colored one is the endoscopic ultrasound. So nakikita nyo, ayan yung mass, no, sa loob. And this one is the CT scan. This is the trachea. And this one is the esophagus. You can see the lumen is very narrow. Yun na lang, ano? And a thickened wall. While this one is a PET scan, no? It has a nagbibigay sila ng high intensity signals because these are areas of high metabolic rate. So, nagfa-flash sila. So, yung mga masses are, ayan, yung mga light-colored areas na yan. And of course, endoscopic ultrasound wherein you place the scope inside the esophagus and you can see the tumor over here. Okay? So, it has a poor prognosis with 5-year survival of 10%. And most of the treatment is focused on symptom control. So we will remove the patient's dysphagia or odynophagia or kung ano man yung kanyang predominant symptom. Resection is feasible only in 45% of cases with 5% post-op mortality. They can develop fistula, subphrenic abscesses, and cardiorespiratory complications. So we can use monoclonal antibody for tumors expressing HER2, no? It can give additional benefits. We can also use chemotherapy and radiotherapy followed by, if you can shrink the tumor, and if it's feasible, it can be followed by surgery. So most of the patient that cannot undergo surgical procedure, we do palliative measures, no? Endoscopic dilatation. So pagka nag-narrow na, you can dilate the esophagus so that you can still permit passage of food. How do you do that? By placing metal stents, no? They are tube, no? Initially, ipapasok mo ide-deploy mo sila naka-collapse. Then once you trigger the lock, it open up, no? So mag-o-open sila, allowing these metal stents to dilate the esophagus. But after sometimes, of course, the tumor is slowly growing, pwede pa rin nilang ma-obstruct tong stent. That's why you can proceed with bypassing this area. So you create a tube directly to the stomach via opening in the abdominal wall, no? Whether your location is the stomach or gastrostomy tube, or in the small intestine, you call it the jejunostomy tube placement. Radiotherapy for um, alleviating the pain. Any question? Question so far?
None so far po,
Katulog na
Doc.
kayo? Okay. So hindi na tayo magbe-break ha. Nasa bahay naman yata kayo eh. Naka-break naman kayo maghapon. By the way, are you in the school or suspended naman, di ba, ang class? Kaya online lang tayo?
No po, Doc. Online lang po talaga kami ngayong week, Doc.
Okay. So, the next one is peptic ulcer disease. So, one of the common form of gastrointestinal disease is a peptic ulcer, no? We can have a patient presenting as burning epigastric pain, no? Yung parang masakit ang sikmura, mainit, no? They are usually exacerbated by fasting and improve with meals. So, ang dami nating mga klaseng diet ngayon, ano? Yung iba na nagpapa-diet, gusto mag-weight loss, they do intermittent fasting, no? So, those diet are not for this patient. So, with our review, no, we have three levels of mucosal barrier system. We have the pre-epithelial, epithelial, and subepithelial. Pre-epithelial, yun yung ating mucus secretion doon sa ibabaw ng stomach, no? That is a mucus bicarbonate po, phospholipid layer. It serves as physical and chemical barrier, no? So we have the epithelial surface, uh, that is a epithelial cells. They are responsible for mucus production, ionic transporter, and to maintain intracellular pH. And underneath is the subepithelial, that is microvascular system. Ang key function niya is for bicarbonate production. So we have the hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. These are the agents that causes mucosal injury, but they are part of our system. That's why we have to balance the physical barrier and this uh, yung ating agents that causes mucosal injury. Their physiologic function is for protein digestion, and hindi naman lahat ng kinakain natin malinis but hindi tayo na-infect because this hydrochloric acid is responsible for killing this bacteria, no? Basal acid, we have the circadian pattern, no? The highest at night. So, yun yung peak ng highest or peak ng acid secretion natin, no? That's why ang ating patients most of the time magko-complain sila, nagigising sila ng hating gabi or madaling araw because nagkakaroon sila ng hyperacidity or epigastric pain because of the circadian pattern. It has cholinergic and histaminergic inputs, no? They are contributors to the basal acid secretion. So, ulcer is defined as more than 5 millimeter in size with depth to the submucosa. In this picture, you can see this is done during endoscopy. You can see the crater here, no? The ulcer. So, this is the mucosa. And then, of course, pag nagkaroon siya ng crater, magkakaroon na siya ng extension to the submucosa. And this one also is the ulcer, no? The white one here, that is the necrotic tissue. And around that white area is the ulcer edge, no? It is represented by a swollen mucosa. So maga siya, tapos yung dito is ulcer. Just like yung nakikita nyo sa inyong mga singaw under the lip, no? Or the cheek, yung nakikita nyo minsan, it's the same. So we have two locations of the ulcer, the duodenum and the gastric ulcers. No, usually they present with the same manifestation, but in duodenal ulcers, 6 to 15%. By the way, this is seen in among Western population up to 15%. The incidence of duodenal ulcer for the past decades, no, bumababa na sila. And why is that? Because it is due to H. pylori. And H. pylori, it was demonstrated in the 1990s, no, 1980s, 1990s, no, na H. pylori can cause ulceration. That's why most of the studies are directed to this bacteria, and discovering the treatment, naging aggressive sila. That's why duodenal ulcers are declining. While gastric ulcer, usually they occur later in life compared to duodenal ulcer, and more than half of the gastric ulcers are seen among males. So duodenal ulcer, usually seen in the first portion of the duodenum. We call it the duodenal bulb, no? It is seen in more than 95% of cases. Usually, maliliit lang sila, up to 1 centimeter, but it can reach up to 6 centimeter. We call it the giant ulcers. And ulcers are sharply demarcated. So you can see the ulcer bed, yung sinasabi nating white portion, yung necrotic area, as doon sa side niya, and the normal mucosa, no? And malignant duodenal ulcers are rare. So when you see a patient with duodenal ulcer, chances are they are benign kasi rare ang malignant yan. While for gastric ulcer, usually medyo common sa kanila ang malignancy. That's why you have to biopsy if you can see gastric ulcer. But also they can be benign, especially if you can see it distal to the junction between the antrum and the acid secretory mucosa, no? So, ibig sabihin, pagka nandoon siya sa antrum, most of the time, it's benign. But, if you see it in the gastric fundus, so do sa proximal part, rare ang benign doon. That's why you have to biopsy. Baka malignant sila. So, in duodenal ulcer, usually, they are associated with infection, H. pylori. Kaya nga, sabi natin kanina, bumababa na yung incidence because of the aggressiveness of treatment for this infection, no? And also, it can be caused by intake of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, no? NSAID injury related. So there is also an increase in average basal and nocturnal gastric acid secretion, and there is accelerated gastric emptying of liquids, and bicarbonate secretion is decreased in the duodenal bulb. To compare it with gastric ulcer, also ang cause pa rin niya is H. pylori and SED. Parehas din sila. But the gastric acid output, the basal and the stimulated one, is normal or decreased. So these are just the classification of the ulcer as to location. Type 1, type 2, 3, and 4. Type 1 located in the gastric body. So that is associated with low gastric acid production. The 2 is in the antrum. The gastric acid from low to normal. 3 is within 3 centimeter of the pylorus. And type 4 is in the cardia, doon na sa proximal. So, hindi naman natin to masyadong ginagamit clinically, but it's nice to know that you know this classification, the type. So, H. pylori may lead to MALT lymphoma, no? Gastric mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, no? In chronic states and symptomatic patient, they can also lead to or connected to gastric adenocarcinoma, this H. pylori, no? So it is seen among developing countries up to 80% of the population, and they can be infected in the younger age, at the age of 20, sometimes even before 20. As to be compared sa industrialized countries, they can be seen mga up to 50%, 20 to 50%. And the predisposing factors to colonization are, again, poor socioeconomic status, less education, because of they do not practice proper environment sanitation, So, yun. Pwede mong mapunta sa iyo because the transmission is from person to person, oral to oral, or fecal oral route. So H. pylori is associated with chronic active gastritis, no? But only 15% of this patient can develop to frank ulceration. And H. pylori is associated with up to 60% of gastric ulcers. Pero mapansin ninyo, among duodenal ulcers, mas mataas, up to 70%. That's why if you treat H. pylori, you will decrease the incidence of gastric and duodenal ulcers, but more commonly, the duodenal ulcer kasi mas mataas ang incidence ng relationship ng DU sa H. pylori compared to GU. How about for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory? The epidemiology, this is the most common because this is the most commonly used medication, no? Dito sa atin, over the counter lang yan. Lahat, masakit lang ang ngipin, masakit lang ang ulo, may rayuma, no? They will just buy any medicines, mefenamic acid, ibuprofen, and other NSAID, no? Not only in the US, but also in Asia. So the spectrum of morbidity starts from ordinary, parang nasusuka ka lang, nausea and dyspepsia, that is the most common, up to 60%, and up to frank ulceration, to be complicated by bleeding or perforation. So it is very important to identify the people who are at risk kasi sometimes they do not have warning signs, no? Sometimes bigla na lang susuka ng dugo or dudumi ng dugo. So the patient can have hematemesis or melena, no? Or sometimes biglang mahilo na lang yan kasi nag-hypotension na because of the bleeding. So we have to identify these people at risk. And sino ba yon? Siyempre, yung mga umiinom ng mga NSAID, no? And because there is no dose that is completely safe. May mga patient, 1 linggong umiinom, 2 linggo umiinom, doon lalabas ang symptom. But for the elderly, sometimes 2 doses pa lang or 1 dose, meron na silang mga symptom. So, no dose that is completely safe. So, what are the risk factors? Again, we have the advanced age, yung mga seniors, no? Patients with previous history of ulcer or merong history of concomitant use ng steroids or dating umiinom na rin ng NSAID na high dose na sila, yung may mga rheumatoid arthritis, mga autoimmune diseases, no? Kaya minsan sila mga prone. Yung iba na multiple NSAIDs ng intake, patients who are taking anticoagulants, patients with heart diseases, no? Mga naka-anticoagulant yan. Naka-clopidogrel, aspirin, no? Or other serious or multi-system diseases. So what is the pathophysiology? There is interruption of prostaglandin synthesis, no? It impairs mucosal defense and the repair. Therefore, it facilitates mucosal injury. So these agents interrupts the synthesis of the prostaglandin. They can also affect, no? NSAID kasi can be oral. Meron din tayong mga topical, no? Yung mga pinapahid ointment. They can also uh, have some absorption in the skin, and to some extent, they can also affect prostaglandin synthesis. So these NSAIDs migrate across the lipid membranes of epithelial cells and thereby causing cell injury. So for the gastric ulcer, the pain is usually precipitated by food. And epigastric tenderness is common. Kaya pag pinrest mo yung epigastric area, they can have some form of pain or tenderness. And sometimes the pain may be found right to the midline in 20%. So hindi siya eksakto sa gitna. Minsan, in some portions of the patient, medyo nasa right side. What are the complications of this peptic ulcer disease? The most common is gastrointestinal bleeding, seen in 15% of the patient, and most of them are in the senior years, no? The mortality rate, of course, you can have as much as 10%. Perforation, this is the second most common and can be seen up to 7% of this patient. And the mortality is pagka-perforation. Mas malaki na ang mortality niya compared sa bleeding lang, no? Because it can cause peritonitis or even sepsis dahil nag-leak na yung intestinal content mo into the intra-abdominal area. Penetration of ulcer bed. Penetration, the ulcer bed tunnels into the adjacent organ, no? So, you can have also the gastric outlet obstruction. So, this is the least common, no? Kasi anywhere of this, any part of the stomach you can have the ulcer, but if it's located at the prepyloric area, which is the narrowest portion of the stomach just before entering the duodenum, pag doon located ang ulcer mo, it can produce edema and then closure of the pyloric ring. So you will have a obstruction. And this obstruction can be relative obstruction or a fixed obstruction. Relative obstruction because if the edema is there and after some time this edema subsides, then you can already have a good passage of food. Kaya yung obstruction resolves, no, after the ulcer healing. But if the ulcer heals and produce a scar, the scar can have a produce a fixed mechanical obstruction, no? So kung fixed na siya, you can have a surgical referral for repair of that obstruction. So diagnosis, barium swallow, initially we do barium studies, but today the most common diagnostic evaluation is through endoscopy because that is the most sensitive and specific. Whereas barium studies can have a sensitivity up to 80% if single contrast. Double contrast up to 90%. Why is single and what is double contrast? Single contrast when you ask the patient to ingest the barium only. Double contrast, you will also induce air or gas so that you can have a good contrast of the uh, esophagus or of the stomach with the air, no? Magkakaroon sila ng two phases of picture, the air and the barium phase. And ulcer can be determined if that is more than 1 centimeter. If ulcer is more than 3 or associated with a mass, usually it's often malignant. That is only an indicator for X-ray. That's why marami tayong parameters that we have to look pagka sa X-ray. But in endoscopy, that is the most sensitive and specific because we use the scope for direct visualization of the mucosa, and we can have already, or we can perform eventually tissue biopsy. So we can send it to the laboratory for histopathologic analysis. And also they are helpful even in small lesions. And evaluation, we can use that for evaluation of atypical radiographic abnormalities. So for the treatment, we have to eradicate H. pylori, no? Or prevent NSAID if the patient is taking NSAID. So we can use antacids, no? Directly neutralizes the acid. Usually we use the aluminum and magnesium hydroxide. The aluminum hydroxide, the complication is constipation, and magnesium is the side effect is loose stools. That's why we combine it to offset the side effect of each other. So we have aluminum magnesium hydroxide. We have also calcium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. We have the H2 receptor antagonists. They are the older generation of treatment for uh, ulcers, but still we have this medicine, but they usually use very seldomly, you know. Hindi na tayo masyadong gumagamit niyan. We have the cimetidine, ranitidine, famotidine, and nizatidine. During the early 1990s, no, silang madalas na, no, because wala pa noon ang mga proton pump inhibitor. It inhibits the basal and stimulated acid secretion. And you treat them for patients with active ulcers up to 6 weeks, no, 4 to 6 weeks in combination with antibiotics for eradication of H. pylori. So now we have the proton pump inhibitors. We have the omeprazole, esomeprazole, rabeprazole, and so on. It inhibits all phases of gastric acid secretion, and the onset is rapid. So in 2 to 6 hours, may effect na sila, and it can last up to 72 to 96 hours. So matagal ang kanilang uh, action, ano, nagstay sa ating system. We can also use cytoprotective agents. So we have the sucralfate, no? Sucralfate, it becomes a viscous paste, no? Malapot siya within the stomach. Parang mag-a-act siya as a physico-chemical barrier. Para siyang pantagpi sa ulcer, no? Dumidikit sila sa ulcer. So physically, ipoprotect nila from acid, and chemically, they will serve to lessen the acidity of that area. So it enhances the prostaglandin synthesis and stimulating mucus and bicarbonate secretion. Colloidal bismuth subcitrate, no? Before meron tayo nito, but now madalang na lang and wala na yata, no? This has a good anti-H. pylori activity, and the mechanism of action is unclear. Prostaglandin analogs, we have the misoprostol or Cytotec. Before din, meron tayo nito, but na wala na because this is strong abortifacient drug, no? So, hindi siya indicated for patients who are pregnant, no? Magkakaroon sila ng abortion, and they can be abused, no? This drug, kaya inalis na sa market. It enhances the mucosal integrity and repair. For the H. pylori, how do we treat? A combination therapy usually given for 14 days, no? We can give amoxicillin, metronidazole, tetracycline, clarithromycin, and bismuth, no? And the side effect of this drug are diarrhea, uterine bleeding, and contraction. The therapy for NSAID, related gastric injury, is treatment of active ulcer and primary prevention of future injury. Meaning, bigyan mo ng either antacid or PPI or kung ano ang ano mo, combination mo, and primary prevention of the future. If the patient is doing self-medication, no, pagka may masakit lang, no, ask the patient na you ask have a consultation. And if there's a need to combine this PPI, if there is really a need to take NSAID, then you have to combine it with proton pump inhibitor because only proton pump inhibitor can heal gastric ulcer or duodenal ulcers, whether NSAIDs are ongoing or discontinued. So, kaya we concomitantly give this PPI among patients taking this NSAID. The role of surgical therapy is for the related complications. If there is hemorrhage, the most common is up to 25% of patients, no? Yun, binanggit na natin. For patients with perforation, peritoneal perforation of viscous organ, for example, perforated ulcer, no? There will be a leak of intestinal content that can lead to sepsis. So patients with uh, penetrating ulcer to other organs such as in pancreas, the colon, liver, or biliary tree. And for yung patients with pyloric channel ulcer or patients presenting with gastric outlet obstruction, especially if that is permanent, you allow the patient to be operated so that they can relieve this gastric outlet obstruction. So the related conditions, gastritis has been classified based on the time course. We can have acute or chronic, histologic features, and anatomic distribution or the proposed pathogenic mechanism. No? Ito, pampadagdag lang ng lito sa atin. No? Ang daming classification for gastritis. So, acute gastritis, the most common cause is H. pylori associated, no? And the patient will have a sudden onset of epigastric pain, nausea, and vomiting. Other organisms that can be implicated aside from H. pylori, it could be streptococci, staph, E. coli, proteus, and a Haemophilus species. So histologically, they are composed of inflammatory cells uh, consisting of lymphocytes and plasma cells and scanty neutrophil. Inflammation, there is a patchy initially involving the superficial and glandular portion of the gastric mucosa. And it can progress to glandular destruction with atrophy and metaplasia. So, this is for chronic gastritis. Ang important lang naman natin dito maintindihan is they can have atrophy and they can develop into metaplastic changes. Kaya it can lead to cancer, no, eventually. So, the phases of chronic gastritis, superficial, atrophic gastritis, and then eventually gastric atrophy. There is loss of glandular structures. And classification of chronic gastritis, we have type A and type B. Type A is body predominant. So, seen in autoimmune diseases, they can develop into pernicious anemia, while type B is antral predominant, usually from H. pylori. So type A, antibodies to parietal cell, more than 90% of the patient with pernicious anemia has this antibody, no? So it will lead to achlorhydria, no? Loss of acid. That's why you will have some form of abnormal absorption. That's why you have to give the patients with, supplement them with vitamin B12, no? Otherwise, they will have megaloblastic anemia and some neurologic dysfunction. While type B, multifocal atrophic gastritis, and sabi nga natin, no, they can lead to metaplasia. That's why they can lead to adenocarcinoma. And H. pylori can also be related to lymphoma. We call it the malt lymphoma, no? Associated with low-grade B-cell lymphoma or gastric malt lymphoma. So the treatment for pernicious anemia, parenteral vitamin B12 supplementation, and we can, if it's related to H. pylori, you have to eradicate H. pylori with the antibiotic mentioned earlier. And you will not be surprised when patient has a lymphoma, sometimes given antibiotic, because if that is related to H. pylori, they can also good relief from the antibiotic or eradication of H. pylori. Any question? So natutulog na lang kayo. So we will have the last slide. Can you see the slide? Hindi ba nagkagulo yung screen ko?
Hindi naman po, Doc. Kita naman po.
Okay. Tumors of the stomach na, no? This will be our last slide, our last PowerPoint. So, tumors of the stomach. So, gastric adenocarcinoma, the mortality rate in the United States, we can see it, it is high in mortality rate, ano? It can be seen among men, mas common sila sa men, 7.4 per 100 compared to 2.4 among women. And the incidence remains high in Japan, China, and Ireland. So 85% of the tumors are adenocarcinoma and 15% are shared by lymphomas, leiomyosarcomas, and GIST or gastrointestinal stromal tumor. And the two main types of gastric adenocarcinoma is the diffuse and the intestinal type. So ano ba tong diffuse and intestinal type? Diffuse, there is absence of cell cohesion. So hindi sila nagdidikit-dikit kaya hindi mo sila makikita readily, no? So individual cells, individual cancer cells infiltrate the gastric wall. So they will have a thickened, no? Makapal, nangangapal. And the absence of obvious mass. Hindi mo sila makita kasi nga diffuse sila eh. So naka-integrate sila sa individual cells. Compared to intestinal type, they have cohesion, no? So there is cohesive intestinal cells. So nagdidikit-dikit sila because cohesive sila and they can produce a gland-like tubular structure. That's why sila ang nakikita mo, yung diffuse, hindi mo sila makita. So the diffuse is usually seen among younger patients and they can be seen throughout the stomach, including the cardia. Because they are diffuse and naka-integrate sa individual cells, tumitigas yung cell, hindi na sila distensible or pliable. So we call it the linitis plastica, parang plastic na siya tumigas, no? Or the leather bottle appearance. So it carries the poor prognosis kasi it occurs throughout the stomach. While the intestinal, you can see, pwede silang dahil ano sila, no, meron silang cohesion, they can form localized lesion. They can produce ulceration, so it can be ulcerative, usually seen in the antrum and lesser curvature, no? So it can be related to H. pylori infection. So, the etiology, we have the nitrates in food, no? Ano ba yung mga nitrates na yan? They can be seen in smoke. Yan yung mga tinapa, yung mga inihaw, no? Kaya pagka puro grilled ang food natin, it can produce nitrates. Sa dried, processed food, no? Of course, alam na natin what is processed, no? And H. pylori. So the possible etiology are gastric ulcers, ulcers that can be coming from H. pylori again, no? Kasi yun naman ang mga interconnection nila. Adenomatous polyp. If you have polyp, you biopsy it. Well, we have different kinds of polyp. We have the hyperplastic polyp, we have the adenomatous type. If that is adenomatous, that can be a possible harbinger of CA, no? Many-Trier's disease, and of course, genetic susceptibility. Kaya we always ask the patient pagka mga ganyan, meron po bang may mga cancer sa family because genetic susceptibility, no? Especially if this expression of HER2. Clinical presentation, wala namang masyadong specific dito, no? Kaya ang ano natin, we always ask the patient whether gastric CA or gastric ulcer, walang specific. But it increases our index of suspicion if the patient is developing weight loss and dysphagia. Pero yung abdominal discomfort, early satiety, postprandial fullness, they are non-specific. Anorexia, because even in peptic ulcer disease, the same. But once a patient declares na meron na siyang weight loss na 5 kilos, mahirap na lumunok, so you suspect there is something beyond ulcer, no? High index of suspicion. So there is no early physical signs. If you have a palpable mass, usually it's a long-standing. Usually you cannot palpate kasi viscous organ ang stomach kaya hindi mo siya mapalpate. Pag malaking-malaki na siya, therefore it's a long-standing problem. They can spread through direct extension to perigastric tissues, so liver, pancreas, and colon. Also spread via lymphatic seed, and they can seed through the peritoneum. So they can metastasize to intra-abdominal and supraclavicular lymph nodes, and that is frequent. If you have metastatic to the ovary, you call it the Krukenberg tumor. If it's in the periumbilical region, we call it the Sister Mary Joseph nodule. And peritoneal cul-de-sac is Bloomer shelf. No? So for diagnostics, we do also the endoscopy, esophagogastroduodenoscopy or EGD, to look directly and perform the biopsy, while CT scan is to check the relationship of the tumor to other organs or contiguous structure or for metastasis. Also, we can employ endoscopic ultrasound, but sometimes this first two is sufficient already. So these are just the representation of the stages from stage 0 to 4, no? Where stage 0 is limited only to the mucosa, then encroaching to the submucosa, muscle layer, and then stage 4 is beyond that outer layer and sometimes to distant organs. So we do surgery for all these tumors. If it's located to distal stomach, we do distal gastrectomy. But for proximal tumors, the surgeons usually do total or near total gastrectomy. So they are radio resistant. That's why hindi magandang radiotherapy. But the role is just only for palliation or for pain relief. Lalo na kung mga malalaking tumor, no? Pinalilit lang ng radio frequency. Chemotherapy, we use cytotoxic drugs and beneficial to some of our patients. And we have the targeted molecular agents, especially if they're expressing this HER2, no? We have the bevacizumab and the ramucirumab. For primary gastric lymphoma, so again, they are relatively uncommon and less than 15% of gastric malignancies and less than 2% of all lymphomas. And the stomach is the most frequent site for extranodal lymphoma. So the features are non-specific, no? Epigastric pain, early satiety, generalized fatigue, no? So they can have mucosal ulceration by endoscopy. It can mimic adenocarcinoma. They can have bulky tumors, no? Just like yung mga cohesive type of lesion. And when you check it, the majority of them are B-cell in origin. H. pylori increases the risk for lymphoma, especially for multiple lymphoma. That's why you have to check, no? Biopsy and check for H. pylori. And if it's positive for H. pylori, 75% of them of gastric multiple lymphoma will respond to antibiotic therapy. And of course, you have to refer the patient to surgery for a surgical procedure. You can have a gastrectomy and then followed by chemotherapy. And the chemotherapy, usually the combination is the CHOP regimen and rituximab, no? Cyclophosphamide, doxorubicin, vincristine, and prednisone. Okay, so that's the end of our lecture. Do you have any question? Do
None
you have
so
any
far.
question?
None so far.
So, do you have your next class?
Yes po, Doc.
O sige, for now, if you are asked to remain muna dyan but we're finished, remain na lang log in until our time and then if there are none, I'll dismiss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Yes, sir.